Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. Welcome to the Marketing Your Practice podcast, the podcast where I help chiropractors simplify the marketing and the mindsets needed so they can make more money, they can have more impact, and they can experience more joy in their lives and their practices too. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking with you. I'm going to be sharing 9 really simple strategies so you can market your chiropractic practice just like Apple. Now, as of the moment that I'm recording this episode right now, it's just gone October, Apple still remains the most valuable company in the world. And they're a kind of phone and computer company, well beyond what is number 2. And what I wanted to do in this episode here is dive deep into the actual strategies that Apple has used to create incredible dominance, loyal fans, raving fans. And there's a lot that we can apply directly straight into our chiropractic practices, some really key strategies. So this is going to be one that I think you might want to have a pen and paper for. And this might even be a great episode for you to sit and listen to with your team, because there'll be obvious strategies inside this that you can start to implement immediately. Now, the end result of this will have you having more impact in your community. It'll have you reaching a whole bunch more people. But we're going to talk about things like raising your prices, improving the experience in your practice. So all of today's strategies are really going to help the bottom line of your practice. Now, here's strategy number 1 when we're wanting to market our practice in the same way that Apple does, is that Apple does a really great job selling the destination, not the journey. So let me give you an example. Most of Apple's advertising is not talking about the tech aspects of their product. In fact, at the time of me recording this, they're just releasing iPhone 13. And the key advertising slogan for that is make Hollywood movies with your iPhone. They're not talking about the specifics of the camera, what size the lens are, what are the actual chips inside it. Now, if you go to the web page and you dive deep in, and lots of the geeks really love to get into this stuff, you can find all of that information. But really what they're doing is they're selling the destination. So let me give you another example with this. Imagine that you're going on a holiday, that you want to go to Italy, and you can imagine yourself sitting in beautiful Rome or maybe in Venice on the gondolas. You're going to be eating amazing food and drinking beautiful wine. Now, if I was a travel agent, I want to be talking to you about all of those things. I don't want to be talking to you about the plane ride over there, the buses that you're going to need to get from the airport to your hotel, maybe the cranky Uber driver. That's the journey along the way. Now, we do that a lot with chiropractic because we spend a whole bunch of time talking about the adjustment. The adjustment is the journey that gets somebody to the destination that they want to get to. It's, in their case, if they're coming in, maybe they're coming in because they've got a child that's upset and unsettled and not feeding properly. The actual journey is not important to them. They want to get to the destination, which is a baby who's happy and healthy, who's feeding, who's sleeping through the night. Maybe you've got a patient that's coming in who's got headaches or migraines. They're not interested, in wanting to know the specifics of the neurophysiology of the adjustment. We spend so much time talking about the adjustment. As chiropractors, we get so excited about learning sympathetic nerve systems and what happens with disafferentation, all those kind of things. The vast majority of our patients, our clients, our practice members, whatever you want to call them, don't care about that at all, not one little bit there. In the same way that I love Apple products and I'm really excited that my new phone is going to create great movies and fabulous photographs, but I don't need to know the tech specs in behind it. So we need to stop talking about those things. We need to start communicating what is the destination? Where are they going? Now, lots of the things I'm going to talk about today will go back to an episode where I talked about value. I think it was episode 231. So it's only a few episodes ago, which is communicating the dream outcome for people. Now, Apple does a brilliant job about doing this. Next time you're watching their ads, whether it be for their computers or an iPad or an iPhone, watch how much they're just selling the destination rather than selling the actual journey. Now, along with this too, because they're selling the destination, they're also not using a lot of jargon. This is another thing we do. And I'm very strong that we hold on to the word subluxation, but it's not a word that I use a lot with my patients. In the same way, if I dive deep into the Apple web pages and their tech specs, I can find out about retina displays and how many LUTs I think they're talking about now, how bright the screen is. Some people want to know that, but the vast majority of people, my wife, for instance, at the moment, wants the new camera so she can take better photographs of our baby boy. That's it. That's what our patients want. So, simple strategy number 2, if we want to market our practice like Apple, is that Apple is constantly innovating. Okay, they're always updating things. iPhone 13, 12, 11, 10. there's new iPads. They're always making changes. They're always trying new things. Now, most of us in practice haven't innovated from the day that we opened our doors. We haven't introduced anything new. We haven't changed our techniques. We haven't got new posters in. We haven't given the practice a lick of paint. We've not changed our hours. Very few of us, if any, even changed the pricing model. So it's the same all the time. We need to be making subtle changes and innovating. Now, sometimes when we innovate, some of the products aren't always a success. Apple has had its fair share of failures along the way to becoming the company that it is at the moment. But there's always new products and they're always updating products. Now, this also, part of this is just telling your patients when you're doing new things, sending an email out to them, hey, we're updating our hours. We're now open these times. Making a big deal of it when you get a new chiropractor on. Making a big deal of it when you get a new staff member on. I've told you the story beforehand, but I want to double tap on it now, is that when beer became one of those items that began to be advertised, one of the big New York advertising studios was going through the local kind of beer manufacturer, and they were learning all about it there. And the guy said, this is where we twice filter the beer. And he goes, twice filter the water to go in the beer. And the advertising guy said, well, you twice filter it? He goes, yeah, everybody twice filters the water in the beer. It makes the beer taste better there too. But that was their whole advertising campaign, built around twice filtered. Now, it was something that everybody's doing, but they advertised it. There are many things that all chiropractors do, but because none of us advertise it, none of us make a big deal of it, the innovation doesn't get to be experienced by our patients. So that second thing that Apple is doing is that they're constantly innovating and they're constantly updating. The third strategy that Apple uses that you can borrow if you're wanting to market your practice like Apple is that we're really clear with what Apple stands for as a brand. Over the last, I think it might almost be 14 years now, they've had their Red products, which has been raising money for HIV and AIDS. They're strongly aligned with, lots of different groups there, strong links in with the arts, strong links in with the gay community, with equal rights, that Apple has put a stake in the sand, said, here's what we stand for. And us as chiropractors, we can do the same thing. We can put a stake in the sand and say, hey, listen, this is what we stand for. Drug-free, healthy, conservative living. We're all about naturalistic, optimistic, yeah, we're all about that too, but organic living. We need to take a stand for that too. Now that leads me on to point number 4. I'm up to now as well. They have a strategy that Apple's using that we can use as well. Is that Apple's also takes a stand for what they're against. In fact, for a long time, not all that long ago, they had a whole advertising campaign of the PC guy and the Apple guy. They were standing next to each other, and one of them was a kind of ties up geeky kind of guy, and the other was this really relaxed, cool kind of guy. Now they had this real. Now it's interesting because when we take a stand against something, it doesn't mean that we need to, really be rude against them. It doesn't mean that we need to talk them down, but it is saying, listen, here's who we are and here's who we're not as well. And again, when we're telling people who we're for and what we're for, we can also say the same thing. Hey, listen, we're not about drugs and surgery. That's not what we do. In fact, we think that's not the place that you should be managing your health. And there's a bunch of research going to suggest that as well. We're for organic living. We're for exercise. We're for good sleep. We're for healthy spine and nervous system. We're not against that stuff. So making sure that, again, point number 3, that you take a stand for what you're for. And then on to point number 4 is that you take a stand for what you're against. And you're letting people know, here's what we're against. This is what starts to build community. And we're going to lead towards that moving forwards as well. Now, strategy number 5 is an interesting one. I think this really applies a lot to us as chiropractors as well. So if we're wanting to market our practice and learn from the strategies that Apple's using, now think about this. Apple has some of the most loyal, raving fans that literally the gospel of Apple. I'm one of them. I have all of their products. I'm looking here in front of me at my iMac. I've got my iPad to the side. I've got my iPhone through here. I buy everything that they have. And so that along with these raving fans, there's phenomenal word of mouth. I love telling people about how great these products are, but they're not a referral only company. They spend billions of dollars every year on their advertising. In fact, I did some research looking at about 10% of their revenue every year goes into actual advertising. And yet us in chiropractic, one of the things that we do is there tends to be these kind of pillars or silos of I'm an internal kind of referral practice, or there's those people over there that do all this external advertising. Apple does both. They're building raving fans internally. They're pushing for internal referral. They're pushing for retention. Yet at the same time, they understand that they need to market externally. I see so few chiropractors doing both of these. They end up in one camp or the other. Okay, so if we want to learn from Apple, it's not one or the other. It's both and that we should be looking at. So strategy number 6, simple strategy number 6, if we want to learn to market our practice like Apple, is that Apple doesn't have sales. Apple doesn't have discounts. They don't have 2-for-1s. I don't buy my iPhone. They don't throw in a free case. They're not positioning themselves as the discount brand. Now, this is something that can really hurt our brands as chiropractors if we're constantly showing up on social media each and every week offering discounts. We are in what's often referred to as a race to the bottom. We become positioned as the discount chiropractor. Nobody takes your discount ever seriously because they know that there'll be another one next week. There's the autumn sale, then there's the spring sale, and then there's the Valentine special that you have on as well. Now, I'm not saying you should never do those things, but if you're showing up each and every week and the way your community sees you as the discount chiropractor, that can be a difficult branding for you to get out of. So be careful about that as well. Now, on to simple strategy number 7, if we want to market our practice the way Apple does as well, is that not only does Apple not discount and not offer sales, what they do is they charge premium prices. They're more expensive. If you take a computer with very similar specs that's an Apple, iMac, and you compare it to a PC, it's way more expensive. What you might cost you $1,000 for a Surface Pro, you get the same thing in a MacBook, and it's $1,500. So the difference is not just a little bit, the difference is quite significant. Apple is not trying to compete on price. What Apple is trying to compete on is value, and they're very different things. Again, I want to encourage you, if you're starting on this episode here, go back to episode 231. In that episode there, I really dive deep into what is the difference between value and price, because you can be priced very, very high, but if you also have really high value, then people are happy to pay lots of money to come and see you for your adjustments. So Apple is not doing now. The way they're able to charge that extra money, one of the ways they're able to provide that sort of value there, is getting onto point number 8 here. A simple strategy, if you want to market your practice in the same way that Apple does there too, is they have fantastic customer experience. When you go into an Apple store, there's loads of people, even if they're not interested in buying the products, are just happy hanging out in there. It's a lovely vibe. It's busy. So don't just think for a moment there too, that sometimes we try and hide away from our practices being busy. I once remember I was locuming for a friend of mine a number of years ago, and it was very busy. It was a high volume practice in there at the time, and we had a new patient come in, and the lady walked in the door, and she said, "My God, it's busy in here." And Tiff, her answer, I'll never forget, she turned to the lady, she goes, "Yeah, we're really good at what we do." Now, that was her response. She positioned that immediately as a benefit. So you go into an Apple place, it's busy. There are people in there just playing with the phones. There are people in there that just want to be in that environment, are happy to be in that environment. How can you create that same environment inside your practice? How can you create an environment where people, your patients going past, just want to pop in anyway, just to say hi, even if they're not having an adjustment? What kind of environment would do that? Is it, some beautiful food and snacks that might be there, a warm smile, great coffee, nice music, wonderful smells? How do you create an environment, that experience where people just want to come in there, even if they're not even going to buy? And not only, it goes past that too, because even the unpackaging of the Apple product there is something that people enjoy. There are whole YouTube stations, or channels rather, that are all about unboxing Apple events, Apple products there too. And so when I think about that too, how do you make the experience of your adjustment as wonderful as that, where people, could they want to film their adjustment? How do you make it so amazing that when they come in for their adjustment, the space that they're created in, your skills are so amazing, the results are fabulous. So the great customer experience is part of how Apple is able to charge those premium prices there too. Now, on to the 9th And final tip that I want to share with you, strategy, if you want to learn to market your practice in the same way that Apple does, is that Apple builds community. There are whole magazines, there are websites, there are forums, there are YouTube channels where Apple community people come together and they talk about Apple products. They're not run by Apple at all, got nothing to do with Apple, but they're these magazines that are designed to just talk about them. Radio stations, radio shows, YouTube channels. Think about creating community. How can you create community? I remember hearing Sean Dill talk about once that we should be creating events for our patients to come along to that maybe have nothing to do with chiropractic. In fact, Sean goes on to say they should have nothing to do with chiropractic. But what are your patients interested in? I remember at my practice having a body language, one of my patients taught body language. Fantastic guy, lots of cool stuff. And we ran a whole workshop on body language and it was full and patients loved it and it created community. You could have cooking classes. There are a number of different things where you could build community. Your social media channels should be building community. And we build community by sharing common values, by not just talking about chiropractic all the time, but by talking about things that our community is interested in. So these 9 strategies we can borrow from. In fact, we can steal many of them to help us turn up and show up much more like Apple. It'll help us raise our prices. So let's review those just kind of briefly again as we sum things up. Apple does a great job selling the destination, not the journey, okay? Why is it that your patients are coming to see you? It's not for the adjustment. They're not as interested in it as what you think they are. What they want is what the adjustment will give them. Is it more time playing golf? Is it time to be a better dad? Is it more productive at work? Is it allowing them to exercise? Whatever that destination is, you need to start communicating in that. Your website needs to have that flavor and feel to it. Everything needs to be about the destination, less about the journey. Apple number 2 is constantly innovating. When was the last time that you did something new or you told your patients about what new is coming? How can you make more of a deal about that too? Points 3 and 4, we know what Apple stands for and we also know what Apple stands against, okay? Are you telling your patients, are you sharing with your community what you stand for? Natural, healthy, drug-free living and the power of the spine and nervous system. What you stand against? Drugs and surgery is first choice. We're not saying that it's never appropriate. Absolutely is at times wonderful for emergency care. It's just lousy when it comes to healthcare. Number 5, that although Apple has some of the most loyal customers in the world, they're not trying to build a business on internal referrals. Okay, clearly they have a massive advertising program and budget as well. You don't need to kind of flip your television on. You don't need to kind of drive down any busy freeway and there are billboards up everywhere. Point number 6 in terms of what Apple is doing is that they don't have sales and discounts. They never do that, okay? Whilst there is some options there that you can get slightly better pricing if you're an educator or a student, there's no summer sales, Christmas sales, any of those kind of things there too. And on to point number 7, they charge premium prices, okay? They're way more expensive and they're not necessarily better, okay? If you really get into the nitty-gritties of what a computer can do and processing speeds and all of those kind of things, often the PCs do them just as well, if not better, but they don't have that Apple feel about them as well. They are onto point number 8, have a great customer experience. People go in there just to look at their stuff. How can you create that same experience in your practice? And then on to point number 9, they create community. Community is one of those things that we need to be building. I think it's one of those things that's lost in many businesses. And if you can nail that, then it will certainly have an impact on your bottom line. So there's 9 really simple strategies that'll help you market your chiropractic practice, just like Apple. Go get to work, gang. This might be a good one to listen to with your team if you're not doing that already. Until next time, thanks for all that you do. Keep saving lives. I look forward to seeing you back here real soon. Bye. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out my Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work with you to help you apply it, implement it, and systemize it. The Community Influencer Group Coaching Program is designed to help you increase your practice income, impact, and enjoyment. Join me over at anguspyke.com/join. That's anguspyke.com/join. I'd love to see you there.